Sweet.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. Evening, Jace.
Good evening.
Jace is busy hobbying away over there on non-Legion related items. What do you got? What do you got on the table?
I am painting up my last two Team Yankee tanks I need for Team Yankee Canadian Nationals taking place in May. So we got two left to go, and then we
Nice.
will be done with these for a while.
How many tanks in that force total?
I have 14 of this one, and then a couple other varieties. 3 of another one, 4 of a little tracked anti-tank missile carrier, but it's mostly an infantry force. So, but I had those done a long time ago, which is good because I did not want to be speed painting those.
I love it. New Flames of War. Mostly infantry force, still has like 20 vehicles. Gotcha. Yep. They love their tanks in that game. That's for sure. So, welcome to the folks hanging out. I know we were later, so we probably won't catch all of our regular crowd, but looks like we have some folks hanging out here. Aaron saying he's catching a Tuesday one for once. It'd be late for Aaron on the East Coast. Bernard's hanging out. Francisco is there. Justice is also hanging out. Hopefully we'll have some more folks catch in. Obviously, you can always just go listen to the VOD, but we will prattle on nonetheless, trying to keep with the Tuesday schedule here. So episode 160, we're going to be talking about last week in Legion. League updates. There's some things happening in terms of dates you need to pay attention to. And if you're not in the league and want to, also some dates that you want to pay attention to. We will be talking a little bit about Yavin Base. Jace will give us a kind of a spiel on that, maybe some parameters and what we're doing for it and who's on the team and all the things. And then going to talk Asajj, and we're going to talk Dark Troopers as well. So Asajj first and then some Dark Troopers. We're going to do a little bit of a different Dark Trooper talk. We're going to talk a little bit about playing them, facing them, and then what we would suggest for fixes. I'm doing a presentation here in the coming week on a book that I'm reading about positive leadership. And so we're going to kind of take the approach where we're not just going to pick things apart without solutions. We're going to instead, be critical about the unit based on some experiences, etc., but then give some solutions. And that's really in keeping with the positive style. That is how you do it. You can't give a complaint unless you give a couple solutions. And so that is one of the strategies and approaches we're going to take here. So, yes, could you call them criticisms? Sure. But they are only criticisms based on, the experiences that we've had with the unit. Maybe you can't address all these things before you get some games in the wild kind of thing. So AMG's has shown a precedent with fixing and correcting things. I'm not suggesting that they will do that. We're just going to give some suggestions if they were, maybe what we would suggest that they do, and then also the reasons why we think they might be impactful. And we won't be correct on all of them. You can tell us how wrong we are in the call center at the end. So I'll preview that right now. Here's your topics for tonight while you're thinking about it is we got it right. You're wrong, and here's why. A little discussion about force users, and then suppression mechanic. I'm gonna give my take on suppression mechanic, and you guys can certainly again use any one of these discussion topics to rebut anything I say there as well. So before we get into the show too much, let's just highlight a couple things here. Like I said, Season 2, Round 4 in progress. We'll talk a little bit about that and games and et cetera. We'll talk about Season 2, Round 5. Sign-ups happening this very moment. So right now, active on the Discord is the sign-up. You can go sign up there if you need the details. We can tell you how. but that is happening actively. Just put that up like literally probably an hour or so ago, and I see that we have already got nearly 10 folks re-signed up, which is excellent. And also simultaneously, we have the ban for next round running. So if you're in the round or planning to play in the next round, you can be voting, and it will be a support ban this round. So one for each faction. You can go cast your vote for that. And then last but not least, just the title for the show, Secrets Are My Stock and Trade. We referring to just our suggestions for improvements to said unit, and we're going to go back and revisit a segment that we created before that I forgot that we had discussed doing, and I want to bring it back. So we have lots of segments, but this one will be Legion IQ, and that's basically where we kind of give our insights on various things, pros and cons, pluses, minuses, changes, and the effects of those changes. So as we're looking at units specifically tonight at Dark Troopers, that's what we're going to be talking about. So feel free to cast in your comments at the end as well. So, all right, Jace, let's jump over here and get into some of the topics. Before we do that, if you watched our Friday night fight, you'll know that we had a little bit of a special announcement on there. A couple, actually, I should state. One I didn't bring into the show, but let me slide that over there. If you are interested, we have a legionterrain.com code for you running through the month of April, so you got a few days left here for sure. It's APR5, the % FNF, all capitals. That will get you 5% off on everything painted, STL files and or unpainted products on the legionterrain.com website. So if you want to, if you're already thinking about buying something, save yourself a bit of cash and you guys can get 5% off courtesy of Legion Terrain. So we gave that announcement. We'll drop that on all the Friday night fights henceforth. And as well, we welcomed in War Scenery. While we don't specifically have all the deal ironed out in terms of what we're going to be doing, what we're going to be featuring, we are excited and we want to get that news out in advance of that because we want to welcome them in as part of the support team for sure. So War Scenery, go check them out. I believe they got a new Kickstarter that's coming down the pipe. But they have currently lots of products and great alt sculpts if you're interested in that sort of thing. And like I said, we like to spread that love around. Not endorsing that you need to do that or don't need to do that, but there's lots of great Legion models available via the current game. But sometimes people like to spice a little stuff on their bases or different projects, and so we of course will gladly support the work they're doing in and around that front. So primarily, we're here for the buildings. I'm not going to lie to you. So we're all about the tabletop features and making our tables look as spicy as possible. So look for some products coming on screen in the future from War Scenery. All right, Jace, I want to talk a little bit about your last week in Legion. Get any games in? Save your Friday night fight because I got all that lined up for you. But any actual other games?
Yeah, unfortunately, that was the only game of Legion I've got in. Haven't got much in, besides building my actual Dark Troopers, which I did for that game. And I will say, after hearing what everybody said about building them, did not find it nearly as bad as they all said.
How about keeping them upright on the tabletop?
That is a pain, because they are so top-heavy. The helmets on those things weigh so much more than those little flame feet that they have.
Yeah.
That part was annoying.
Yeah, they. I have not even got mine yet. I haven't been to Saskatoon in a little bit, so I got to go up and grab mine. I'll probably just wait and grab everything all together. I need Ahsoka, Asajj, Moff, and Dark Trooper. So
And Cody's this Friday.
And Cody, but yeah, and I saw a couple stores today posted, or sorry, at least one store, and perhaps the effect will be a little wider spread, but I saw a couple stores saying that we're going to have a week delay on that. So I don't know if that's widespread or, again, not starting any rumors or anything, just I read what I read. So hopefully he is not delayed, as a widespread delay. But we'll I guess see. But in a week you could have Cody in hand, and so one more box to grab for sure. So I'm less excited about that right now, but who knows, down the pipe maybe Cody becomes a go-to commander if you're going back down the road with heavies. So we'll see. I'm sure there will be some nastiness cooked up that I'll want to try. So I'll get them assembled and on the tabletop. Maybe it makes ISPs good. Who knows? Maybe somebody will sneak some secret tech in there. So
I honestly keep forgetting clones have an ISP.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I played a couple games, had a couple losses this week, as the Dark Trooper list that I have is really terrible. The thing is, the Dark Troopers aren't. They're just like they're living. I haven't lost 2 units of Dark Troopers. I did lose 1 unit of Dark Troopers in one game due to a pretty anomalous, fantastic, 9 crit roll on 11 dice. So they melted pretty quick as my saves were so really high on the crits and very low on the saves. I think it was a 10 crit roll, and I went 3 for 10, 3 for 10 with a pierce in there. So made it real bad. So pretty anomalous though. But other than that, Dark Troopers have been just really good. The rest of the list is terrible. I submitted it right basically as I was packing for Worlds. And I mistakenly left out Pin Down, which basically makes the list almost nigh unusable against clones, I found, because I really just can't put orders back in at all. So played against a non-clone list, no problem. Against the clones, the ability to not trim the fire support down and then just sitting there and taking random big dice pools hoping for crits, which is effectively what both my opponents have seemingly done, is just a really tough hill to climb out. So that's what happens when you rush and submit. But it's fine. Other than that, I think it would be better with that. Boba Fett's really kind of let me down in a couple games, but again, the inability to put tokens back, his setup turn, the turn he wants to kind of dive and get into position, it's really tough because he has to go so late after the clones. And I just don't have that turn ahead where I can really put those tokens back and sort of open up his window to get in a little sooner. So really that's my complaint about it, and that's just a submission error on my part. But I have a nastier version cooked up for next round, which cannot be impacted by any of the bans. So I will take my revenge in the redemption bracket for next round for sure. So free wins, as I pointed out when I submitted the list this given round.
Well,
so,
I'll be joining you in that redemption bracket, Sean.
Yeah, well, fair. That's
not that my list has been performing well; it's that my list hasn't performed at all yet.
Yeah, it's just tough to get.
I have yet to get a game in it.
Yeah, it's actually this has been the toughest round for me too. I was very sick over the break, like extremely sick, and still kind of coming out of it. So I did not get to really do anything. I literally left my house 2 times in the 10-day break that I had. So, but I am confident that, even with a really poor performing list, the Dark Troopers are still overperforming. And that's kind of the topic that we're going to get into tonight, because they don't need literally anything around them to be good. They are they feel they are exceptionally independent in their own effectiveness. And I think that's part of how they operate, right? They don't rely on token generation from other units. They don't rely on heals. The cover doesn't matter for them. They can play almost any objective at this point, and we'll kind of talk a little bit about that as well. And they're really good. The unit is exceptionally good, and I'm running the very full version. As I said, when I was going to test the list, I wanted to run it at the max of everything. I think you can trim them down. And Jace, the first time him and I played, he was running them not in the full variant, and you were running in the full variant.
I was running the first time we played, yeah.
And we said right at the end of that game that I think they should run with 1 less, and we both kind of agreed. And then I haven't tried the full variant, so I ran the full variant as well. And now I can say, based on my own experience, I do also think that they can run leaner, and that would free up a lot of points in the list. But the list that Jace played Friday Night Fights, which you'll talk about, I think is one of the meanest lists out there right now. And I think that's pretty much at max performance for where you're going to find Dark Troopers. And we'll talk about that in a minute here as he gets into his last week from Legion. So before we do that, Jace, let's maybe jump over and hit some of the social medias and the perks and all those good things, because there's some news on those fronts for sure. that I want to share and give some quick shout outs here. So where do they find us, Jace? Where can they find us on the medias?
You bet. So, if you're looking for us on other platforms, you can check us out on Facebook, Star Wars Legion Friday Night Fights, Twitter and Instagram at Legion_FNF, and of course the Patreon at the Terrain Studio. Lots of cool stuff going on out there. Lots of cool stuff is just shipped, so should hopefully be coming to people right away. I think we heard that some people are already starting to receive stuff.
Yes, absolutely. I want to talk about that. Thanks for the segue there. So talking about the perks, we're done running this for right now in terms of the activation tokens. We did those earlier in the year. We are going to do another order this fall, but the ones we got in already shipped and shipped out on Thursday last week. I believe I sent them out, and they're already starting to arrive. I see a few people, actually 2 people in chat right now, have received, and Aaron got his and used them today, and so he and they were lucky for him. So that's really cool. Bernard also said that he got his order tokens today. So let us know in the feedback. Make sure you guys post the photos if you guys are interested. They are there, and if you're interested in what the set looks like, so if you want to save your pennies and get ready for the next time, and these are only available via the Terrain Studio, so they are a Patreon exclusive. We don't sell anything. We just do them out as perks, so you can join a certain tier and get certain perks. And this is what you actually get, and this is what all of those folks have received: 4 Commander, 4 Operative, 4 Core, 4 Special Forces, 4 Support, and 2 Heavies. Aaron was that guy who triple joined the tier and got himself 3 sets because for whatever reason he wanted 6 heavy tokens. So speaking of Dark Troopers, I think he was all in on them. So wanting to run the 6 heavy tokens. So he's got himself a lot of FNF tokens. If you are interested right now via the Patreon, you can actually join. So folks that are joined in April through May will be able to snag themselves a set of 10 of these fan art, I should say, inspired card sleeves for your favorite card sleeve games. Whatever games you want to play, standard Legion size. You can put in your request on there, and all you have to do is basically be a tier 3 member, and you get all the perks associated with that, but bonus perks. And so once we roll over to May, I know who's in the tiers. I'll do the orders, and when they arrive, you can even leave after that if you want. You will still receive your perks. So I like doing these little fan art inspired stuff. They just make us make us feel good, makes it feel like we're representing our chosen factions, and have your cards look a little cooler, if you will. So, and it's cool if you just have no card sleeves too. That's you're cool in all respects. But if you wanna go pick a set, there's some to choose from, and they'll look pretty much just like that, but in printed form. So that's what we got going on. Don't forget Fridays around 8:30 CST. I know with that daylight savings we bump back for some people, but we do run Friday night fights. We do have a few people who are going to be hopefully added to the mix here in the coming weeks. Jason and I have been chatting up some new players. I actually potentially have a game scheduled tomorrow night against a visitor from Saskatoon. Weather pending. We're actually, Jason and I are in the middle of a pending snowstorm. Apparently, we're supposed to get like 8 inches in the next 2 days, so which is crazy. Since really all the other snow is gone, but winter is still here. But yeah, so Friday Night Fights, you can check us out. Very cool, always fun. Jace is going to talk about his game as soon as he gets back. But before he gets back, I just want to give a shout out to all the folks that help us make Friday Night Fights happen and make it look cooler each and every week. Special shout out to Sean Siebert coming in last week with another $50 donation. Really, really appreciate that. We're on that slow climb as we work our way towards getting a PTZ camera. I think we're still set on the Bird Dog, but in and around that, we got some different models to look at, but I think that's the one we're still going to shoot for there. And so we were $1,800 on the way there, 60%. All the folks on the screen have really been great and helping us out there. I did throw the Gale Force 9 logo on there just in case people are wondering. They are not sending us anything, but I wanted to put that up there because we rep a ton of their products, and John's always been great to me. So just have that up there just in case, because we do feature that on the screen. So if you're looking at that little blue logo, that is there. That's for our trees, our hills, etc. So a lot of people are always asking, so I thought I'd put that up there as a reminder to me to go check them out as well. Battlefield in a Box is effectively the line of terrain that we get from that we use on the studio set here. So, okay, Jace, why don't you walk us through your game against Anthony, episode 83. You rocking Empire, him rocking the CIS. Anthony's list, we'll talk about his real briefly. We won't tell you everything about the game, but we'll give you a pretty good recap. So if you want to earmuff because you want to go watch it, that's fine. If you want to hear about it, you're probably going to hear about it in some detail anyway. So Anthony running a slight variant of the list he ran the week before, episode 82. And this week here, he ran the T-Series. He ran one less B1 this week, so he was running four, one with the rocket, two with the E5S, and one with the medical droid. He upped the Magna Guard up to 2 this given week, and then he swapped out, who did he have the week before? He had, he ran Maul and Asajj the week before. This week he ran CAD and Asajj, so Anthony's probably one of the best CAD players that we know, and so he went back to the tried and true Cad Bane. And he's just trying to make Asajj work, although he's not overly impressed with her. Hence, this inspiration for us to talk a little bit about Asajj tonight and just kind of our takes on Asajj. Jace, why don't you walk us through your list, the one that you ran this last week?
Yeah, so I was running Dark Troopers again, and I was running what I think is probably the most powerful Dark Trooper list that there is, which is double darks with both heavies and the loyalty, because you want those free tokens from being in range of your commander, which you always will be pretty much with this list. 3 Naked Storms because you have to. And then you have an Imperial Royal Guard with Protector to guardian some of those crits away. And then you got good old Palpatine giving order to the guard. He's got Burst of Speed, Anger, Force Barrier. Just helps keep them alive more, and that pull the strings to give 5 attacks a turn is nasty.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's just a couple action shots from the table. So again, we're running those. There's the Gale Force 9 stuff there in the form of the trees and the hills. Obviously featuring some Legion terrain here in the AT-AT down on the table. And we even had a sprinkle of Imperial terrain in there, some the Cochin Industry items. So the Crash X-Wing and a few other features on the table. So ran a little bit of a more sparse sort of table, not anything overly heavy. Eliminated the buildings. We wanted to bring out this Deep Cut Studios mat we hadn't used in a while. It's kind of a light foresty green, so gives it a little bit of a different hue to the table. So that was kind of the inspiration to keep it a little bit lighter, just to really show off that mat. The game was quite, I think, quite interesting, but really was kind of showing off the power of the Dark Troopers. That quintuple tap of Dark Trooper madness is really
disgusting.
Really bad. They really
even the first turn when I only put off 3 attacks, the 3 attacks on the first turn is just disgusting.
Yeah, they just melt units. Like B1s don't really stand up to them at all. Magna Guard don't love to take that volume of saves. There's always that chance that you spike in the negative direction. They don't really drop off in melee either, and the Magna Guards don't hit full armor in melee really any better than, in fact, probably worse than they are at range with the rockets that Anthony was running. So, the typical close in and bury your Magna Guard doesn't really work if you can't get by the Darks. And then the simple fact that the Dark Troopers can, once buried in melee, swing at you twice a turn really doesn't make it feel any safer. So
20 melee dice.
Yeah, Anthony just found himself really in no great positions in this game. He tried for that center box with a CAD play. CAD lives at the end of the game, but there's some things that happen in between there. But really, that wasn't that's kind of an all in play, and it's seldom going to work out if you're just kind of safeguarding that back, your own on the back, and then the middle one. So Palpatine with burst of speed in this list as well. So when you need to, he can basically shoot up and do damage. The Now You Will Die turn, probably you probably could have even done without playing that card in this game, to be honest, Jason.
Oh no, didn't even need it.
Yeah,
But
it's
I was
just
like, it was a win more moment. It was
yeah.
I can hit a B1 unit twice, evaporate it, hit a Magna Guard unit twice, evaporate it, and now I think after that he had his T series, his operatives, and one unit of B1s left on the table.
Yeah, there really wasn't much, and Asajj, can do things too, but again, just swinging into the full armor, even with Pierce, yeah. Vader's your guy. I think he's going to be the best, but even he can take a few turns to get through a fully stocked unit. So, and by that time, maybe you're losing too much on the backside. So. Yeah, really tough game for Anthony. Tough matchup for sure. But I think this list is just tough to match up. I matched up against it at Worlds with a extensively packed impact list and Ion, and it was just hard to trim through. I think I killed 7 Dark Troopers in the game. That's a hefty number of Dark Troopers, but that's after getting through the IRG, after shooting. Into Palp multiple times, and the protector barrier combo is really disgusting right now in terms of the timing. So maybe there's some changes there, but even if those changes don't get made, we have some suggestions at maybe how Dark Troopers could be, I'll call it quote unquote fixed, but possibly some solutions to the unit for sure. So we'll get into that here in the coming minutes. So let's just slide over to our news screen here. So as reported by Pally, he didn't report this one, but we're going to say he did anyway. But he is confirmed to be plotting a list with Commander Cody and of course Rex. So just in case you guys were wondering where he's at. Okay, Jace, I wanted to bring this up just sort of as a funny, but maybe not, because I feel like anyone with this model right now basically has access to unlimited funds based on the auctions 100%. That I see running for this. So, okay, sorry, just distracted by Sun Eater says, my wife says she will join our little group if I make her a Vader and Dark Trooper list. I mean, if your wife asks you to do anything, first, you should do it. Secondly, if it's related to her playing Legion, that sounds like super husband points, and definitely a yes. So let us know if you need any help with this, accomplishing this mission. But getting back to this, Jace, you've seen it, I've seen it, the internet's seen it, and I am not attempting to kick the bee's nest here. I'm going to kind of go neutral, but I have some opinions. So the Star Wars Celebration model, let me just say again, definitely the coolest, exclusive that the game has put out in its existence. It's an exceptionally awesome model. I think that sort of plays into the fact of the price that this can command. I do love that there's a price point that is exceptionally reasonable for this, and I don't necessarily fault people for asking for more, because if you had to travel, wait, etc., to get this, then you might be able to command a slightly increased price. That's like, hey, Jace, can you go pick me something up in Saskatoon? Here's 20 bones for the gas, right? You were already going, I get that, but here's a little something for your trouble. I don't know if I would be prepared to be like, hey, Jace, can you pick me up something in Saskatoon? By the way, let me cover your gas, your hotel for 3 nights, the eating out, something for Emily, some new clothes for your dog, etc., etc. Because I think that's kind of the price that we're at this point. Like $700-$800 to me, that seems a bit extreme. Now, here's the thing. I will not be the guy who goes on and really destroys somebody on the internet for posting this up at whatever price they want. I think if you're going to do this and you want to let it run to funds, do your eBay auction, whatever. Start it at a reasonable price. Let people go crazy and fight over it and get it to whatever price you're going to command. I think though, when you go on and when you go on and put a pretty egregious price, a pretty big one to start, or you go on and be like, got two, and everyone's kind of vying for them because they're so new. I think you're going to evoke some responses, and you should be prepared to receive every response that you get. I'm not sure where you settle out on it, Jace, but I'd be interested to hear your take.
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's the price you get it at, which is not going to be the price that it will normally go for. Anything that's an exclusive like this will always sell for more. That's just the nature of an exclusive and how market forces work with it. But there is a price that can be set that is way too high.
Yes.
And some of them are definitely hitting that price.
Yeah, and I don't. I mean, if somebody's willing to pay it, no problem. And I feel a little bit bad for the folks that put their their item up and the cost that they have on it, because 97% of the people have an opinion and not really want to interact with the seller. It draws a lot of negative attention and it probably hurts them. And I think this might be the problem with exclusives in and of itself. But I don't. That's not to say that I don't think exclusives shouldn't exist. We have been down this track before. The Vader exclusive, the Obi exclusive. Initially, when the exclusive Lukes came out, right? Some people were getting it free with purchase. You had to spend X dollars, you got one free. Some people were just outright selling them. Some people were outright selling them for ridiculous prices. Some people were just straight giving them away. We gave several away. But this one right here, I think maybe after Gen Con, after maybe there's a few more, and then maybe down the track, some people have been suggestive like, hey, why don't you just make these widely available? And I don't know what the sort of play here is. If it's exclusive to create an exclusive because it's a limited run, okay, that makes sense. I think though, if you're making dollars off it at the €90 price point that it is, and making it widespread and still makes you a profit, that seems okay to me too. I don't presume to tell AMG how to run their business. I just know that it's going to draw positive and negative attention for a variety of reasons, and until it becomes even more widely available, it's going to be like that. We've seen this on the flip side. Where the Obi released in Europe was creating a stir here on the other side of the pond for sure. So Bernard says here, in the end, it's just a miniature. I'd rather buy more units and keep the game alive. The exclusive, I think, does more harm in the end as people feel left out and may consider dropping the game. Make them available a later year. Can even do their website only. Sun Eater with that suggestion there. So I think what we're hearing largely is that people don't mind exclusives, and don't mind maybe like you get it. I like that idea. You get it 6 months ahead of everybody else. You get it, X, maybe even an exclusive con price, and then later on maybe they say, hey, this is going to be available, but because we have to up production or it's more expensive to produce, it's going to be available. We're going to up the price a little bit, and it's a website only. Kind of drive that traffic. Or I loved what they did with the Lukes, tied them to the purchases of other things. I would be cool with that. Yeah. If I had to spend X dollars to get a really cool model, I'm going to spend the money anyway. But maybe the people who aren't necessarily going to spend that particular price amount might drive it up to get this. So whatever they do, it's fine. I wanted to talk about it just because I have enjoyed, but also sort of cringed a little bit at some of the interactions that I've seen. I'll tell you this right now, people. I think the personal attack's completely unnecessary. It's unnecessary for the groups because I'm always cognizant when you jump into a group for the first time. I always envision that it's my first day in every group. And if you jump in and you see just a bunch of negative interactions or negative posts or people knocking down people in the first couple posts on a group, for me, it's like turn around and just go join another group. So, and I'm always joining new groups, and that's kind of the litmus test. I scroll through and I see what kind of atmosphere, what kind of environment I'm joining. So, I'm always, a little protective about the groups I'm in, and I don't think some of the stuff I read is like, okay, that might be funny, but it's probably a little off-putting to many people. So, If you make it funny about the game or whatever model, etc., the personal attacks, it doesn't matter what price point it at. It's completely unnecessary in my opinion. So yeah. So anyway, we'll move on from that. But very cool model. I hope to acquire one. I'll just put it that way. But I will not acquire it at $800. So even though I'm probably a little crazy like that and pay more than things should be worth sometimes, but that is me. So Canadian Bear, just before we jump, because there's another comment here. I have less of an issue with this and more with the store exclusives like Grogu, that they don't give direction on how to give out. Fair. The direction to stores should be pretty clear. Agreed. I didn't feel like our stores that, Jace got his from one, I got one from the other. I didn't really feel like there was any confusion there, but not to suggest that other stores didn't maybe have some confusion around that. But yeah, if you're going to give it to stores, give some parameters around that. Don't let people put a sticker price on it and throw it up when it's supposed to be given out a different way. So yeah. Painting stream, I always just drop these at whatever the Twitter says. So I believe they were painting some Shatterpoint today. So if you want to go join, go check that out. I always click on the streams just to see what they're doing, but it looked like they're doing Shatterpoint today. All right, quickly moving past that. All right, Jace, let's get into some Asajj talk here. So we can we'll keep this episode probably around the 1:30 mark, but we'll see because we got a lot to say about Dark Troopers. But I think we'll get to the end so people can say their piece too. So here's Asajj. Yeah. If you don't know Asajj, if you haven't played Asajj, if you're unfamiliar with the card, here's what we got going on. So 2 force powers, 2 training slots, jump 2, 150 point base, deflect, independent dodge 1, indomitable, immune pierce, Jaikai mastery. So basically when you're performing attacks, spend those dodge tokens, modify, improve attack results. Just to say this, if it's a surge, it doesn't just improve right to a crit. It's just improving the die result. So you got to go through the progression to hit, then crit, just to be clear on that. And then relentless. Yeah. A ton of keywords.
Now, if you have surge tokens, you can spend a surge token to make the surge a hit and then improve it.
Yeah. But you're improving the dice results via the natural progression, unless you have some sort of way of converting, as Jace just pointed out there. Lightsaber, very nasty. That's 8 black. Impact 2, Pierce 2. Obviously, operative, 5 health, 2 courage, speed 2, red defense dice. I will tell you right now, she has so many keywords that in almost every game that I have played her or against her, me or my opponent has forgot one of the keywords for basically the entirety of the game. This happened to Anthony in episode 82, where he forgot about Indomitable. I have often forgot about the independent dodge 1. Just, because you just kind of, there's so many things there. But with so many things, go ahead.
And when you must divulge her 3-pip, you give her more keywords.
True, that is fair.
You give her 3 more keywords.
Yeah, we'll get into that on the next stream, but very, very good point. Yeah. Just a lot to remember there. And I think what happens for me is I'm kind of used to like the keyword and then the reminder text. And there's so many kind of keywords jammed together here that you almost kind of don't have that natural division like we did before. I do appreciate that they put them all in the front though, so you're not trying to flip to the back. That would just be horrendous. But so for all the keywords and all the ability to to sort of be speedy and be defensible and get out of courage trouble or out of suppression trouble, my impressions of Asajj, and I think Anthony would echo this, kind of really glass cannon and not more glass, less cannon even.
There's
she's
no
very,
cannon.
Very dice dependent. I mean, that's like not a genius statement by any means. It's like hot take. She's 50-50 on the dice, right? So that looks great, that 8 black, but odds are with no ability to modify, that's 4. So, and that's not a great swing, right? If you're going into units with dodge tokens, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, she has ways to modify. She can spike, as can Dark Troopers, because Dark Troopers also shoot 8 black with no modifiers. Crit 1, I should say, so 1 crit modifier. 1. But oftentimes feel like they hit much more than 4. Anthony can probably also attest to that. So, So I'm kind of. I guess I'm not underwhelmed or overwhelmed with playing her, but she doesn't seem to be as offensive as I was initially thinking. So we've seen some different builds. We've seen like Asajj run with Tenacity. Tenacity's great. It had that red in there. It's really great. But the moment Asajj goes to 4 health, I'm already starting to panic a little bit with her.
Yeah, a Saber user at 5 health is really scary. That actually really threw me off on that Friday Night Fight game because I have not seen a Saber user that's less than 6 health.
Yeah, and so unless you're taking like actively taking some heal bots or something to kind of keep her propped up with that health, she feels like a little bit of a liability. I really liked when Jamie ran so seeing in the photo here, but just reminding me back, the Asajj Dooku combo. Obviously they have a card that specifically plays with each other, but I didn't actually mind the combination. I thought that was a kind of a nice threat. Asajj can kind of be that shootout early and kind of run a vanguard, and then Dooku can be a little bit safer to slow roll with the bulk of the forces, which wasn't a bad play. Sometimes I find you have to be a little bit too defensive with Dooku because if he gets sort of picked on or isolated, he will die and you'll lose a big key piece. But the Asajj Dooku threat was kind of unique, and I hadn't run that, and I just run Asajj, and I found her alone to be just too fragile. So
Yeah.
just having another look at the comments here. So yeah, that's kind of my first thoughts on that. I'm just going to slide over screens here so we can continue the conversation, but factoring in the cards. So with Asajj, with the base value, Jace, and then her cards, what are you thinking now that having seen and sort of played against her kind of thing? What are you thinking around the command card? Is there any like must takes? Is there any like I would be okay not taking that? You can flavor this without whatever other force user in the list you want. So obviously, if you're running her as a solo, maybe her 3 is great. But yeah, thoughts on that?
So Anthony never even played her 2-pip against me because there was never any units nearby close enough to, just the unit she was engaged with, which was Dark Trooper, so that wasn't really going to help.
Right.
The Divulge card, I mean, it's good. I think you have to take it just because it gives you more buffs. Anthony forgot about Demoralize 1 the whole time, and Makashi and Outmaneuver never really mattered because I was hitting her with enough. But I mean, it's a good enough card. I like the card.
Yep.
Her 1-pip seemed good. I'm not quite sure how I feel about it because when he was using it, he was again swinging into Dark Troopers, which with the dodges and all the shenanigans like you get with them, especially like the free tokens and everything, it still only did like 2 wounds.
Yeah, like she's gonna basically be able to modify up to 4 dice, right? So if you roll like in a given situation, you roll this out, your average crit expectancy is 1, right? So you natty 1, you hit another 3. So you're impacting 2 of those, and then you're spending 2 dodges to get the other one to a crit. So you can come out with 4 crits there and almost use every modifier you have. So unless you spike a bunch of crits, your ability
I think you can come out with 5. I think 5 crits is what you can come out with. Because you'd roll a natty, you'd impact 2 hits, you'd spend 1 dodge to make the third
I guess
you
can do
hit.
5. Yeah, you're right.
And then you can spend 2 dodges to make a blank, and then you're left with a dodge.
Here's the thing though. I don't know if if I'm in with Dark Troopers that are rolling, let's just say they're a 5-man Dark Trooper unit that's rolling 5 red, 5 white against me. I don't know if I'm feeling super comfortable in a non-surging red dice situation with 1 dodge. Yeah.
Yep.
So you're really, unless you're going to kill the unit or feeling good about killing the unit, you're unlikely to go really be much beyond maybe your natty crit and your impact 2. Like you almost can't afford to spend them.
Nope. And even when Anthony did against me, I mean, the other thing too is Dark Troopers can always just have a dodge from being in range 1 to 2 of their commander.
Yeah.
So I was just able to dodge one of those and be like, yeah, you can't even get up to that many crits anyways.
I think it's a bit of an isolated scenario to use a card that gives you Jedi Hunter and then say comparatively terrible against a
Exactly.
full armor dark trooper. So
Yeah.
use that. Take that.
It's not meant for that.
Yeah,
It
take
is
that
not
with a
meant
grain
for
of salt.
cars.
We're talking about a situation that we encountered as a kind of a lived experience. But I think the card is good. I think the concept
Agreed.
of giving her the dodges is situationally quite good. You got the Indomitable to the next turn to roll out of the suppression. You have the ability to spend the dodges offensively if you happen to have a poor roll, or any variant thereof. You can buff it all the way up if you feel quite comfortable with, I don't need the defense if I can just kill this unit outright. There is abilities to do a lot of damage with that one given card. It for me though, it's what happens after that. When she gets really buried, what I'm finding more often than not is just like step out of it. Just step out of it and then just blast her off the table. Doesn't like to take
5 health, not that much.
Exactly. For sure. What's Canadian Bear say? Depending on the timing, they can always take a second activation, disengage, and even take a bunch of damage from her 1 pip. I mean, they could. It's surge crit for sure, but I don't really think the Dark Troopers are stepping out of the combat with her. Period.
No.
I think if they're stuck in,
I just
they'll punch her for 20 dice. Is what.
And if you activate before her, you just take a second dodge and then punch her for half your dice first.
For 10 dice. Yeah,
for 10 dice, and then you just spend 2 dodges and do it again.
Yeah, I think with the I Am Fear card, the 2-pip, you got to just pay attention to the order of operation there as well. That attack isn't versatile.
Yeah.
So you just have to kind of make sure that you are playing this, right? So because at the end of her activation, she can perform the attack. So you almost have to like use this as she's buried, she swings, she pushes, and then does the attack. The problem with this though, in my or you could do the reverse. You can do it at the end of the activation and just sort of be stuck out there. But the whole idea of being kind of isolated, to me, and trying to hit a unit at range 1 if you want that range, is the fact that she could be isolated and left alone. Or you basically can swing and then melee the same unit with the attack again. So I just not necessarily sure I love the timing on that card, but there is place.
I would agree with that.
It does give her a pseudo ranged weapon, which she currently doesn't have with her lightsaber alone. Speaking on the topic of lightsaber, Jace, ever taking saber throw on her?
Never.
No. I don't see I don't see the value there either. I have seen it on one build, but I just again,
with the rules changes and how cover works now, it's just not worth it.
Sure. Yep.
The max you can hit out is 4, and then you can do 2 through cover, which you pierce, but you average 2 hits.
Yes.
Which is just cover. You just average taking away cover, which just wastes an action.
Yep. And again, remember that Jaikai does not improve a ranged attack either. So you can't even like pseudo buff that up with dodge tokens.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So overall, Asajj is cool. I like the model. I actually like the model better physically than I did in the kind of the images.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So very, very cool model. I've been kind of finding that lately with some like I'm not faulting any photography or anything like that, but the models themselves look like even the Dark Troopers. The Dark Troopers don't look kind of I don't know. They sort of look I guess too like streamlined in some of the photos, and maybe that's just the paint and the hard line edging, and et cetera, et cetera. But I found your models like they were just like base, like just nothing, just bare plastic. Were cool, like cooler, I should say. So, which is great. I mean, if the models are cooler than my expectations, then that's always great. At least you're not being disappointed or being found wanting. So, do like that for sure. But she would fall into that category as well. So I wasn't just really sold on the flowing skirt, if you will, initially. But it looks better in person, in my opinion. So Asajj for me, again, I don't really love or fall heavy for Force users. I don't mind the Dooku Asajj combo. That might be something to try. I wanted to try Dooku more than I have previously, and maybe that would be. But again, for the reasons I mentioned earlier, I found like I had to play overly defensive with him. because if you lose him, he's a fixed point, a huge fixed point in your force. And the
Yeah.
force kind of crumbles around him. But maybe having a little bit buffer in Asajj, and maybe actually buffing Asajj's ability to get in there and maybe not draw all the fire if you have Dooku kind of slow rolling. So you're kind of maybe splitting your opponent's priorities. Or if they do go all in on Asajj, you keep her kind of in a defensive state and rely on her a little less for the offensive output. Bring Dooku up to do Dooku things, and then maybe you can switch gears with Asajj. So maybe that's the play here, but it's still a big investment for points. Her at 150 and him usually clipping in around the 200 mark easily with some upgrades.
Yeah.
So it's an
Yeah, I
investment
think
for
Asajj
sure.
when upgraded hits like, I think you're usually running Asajj around
174,
175.
173. Yeah, in that mark
Yes.
for sure. So
Yeah.
that's a hefty investment. For me, I don't play them well enough to make that investment, but in like testing or just throwing lists together to try, I think that's worth giving a spin for sure. So, yeah. All right. Any more thoughts on Asajj?
Not really. Just her offense is a lot less than I thought it would be. Seems to
looks-
leave a lot to be desired there.
Yeah, looks real splashy. Just haven't found that to bear out too often. So, big
Yeah.
ceiling though. She can if you
Yeah.
can swing and hit that, like spike a big black dice pool, but that non-surging convert there sometimes makes the paint look a lot better than it is. So the
Yep,
same can be
and-
true for the next unit we're about to talk about too. So
Yeah, and the 5 health just gets me. I don't like it. Like, yeah, like Canadian Bear was saying. I mean, Shadow Collective Maul's 5 health too, but you also get 2 free wounds on that because of that 2 pip. So he's technically 7. Like, she's the only real 5 health force user, and it's
yeah,
I don't know. She's what 10 points less than in base Anakin. With I think Anakin has better command cards. He's got a better lightsaber. He's got
Yeah,
a better
agreed.
mastery.
yeah, his mastery is very nasty. That just like take a
Very.
wound.
Yeah.
Take a wound.
Yeah, just
It's
take a wound. It's melee too. Take a wound. Just take a
also
wound.
hurts Dark Troopers subsequently. So
Yes.
yeah. All right. Well, let's slide over and talk a little bit about. Oh, we didn't actually. Maybe we'll just, in fairness, let's cover off this additional Dooku card here. Have you seen
yes.
anyone running? I guess you haven't really probably played against an Asajj Dooku.
I have not seen an Asajj Dooku list.
Right. So, I believe Jamie did run this in his list. So I think that if you're gonna run the combo with the 2, you might just find a place to bring this, but it just really depends
Yeah.
whether you like Dooku's 3 pip and Asajj's other 3 pip for the divulge.
Well,
so.
this counts as a 2 pip.
Oh, that's
for
correct. That's right. That's
command
right. This
head
counts as a 2 pip. So
And honestly, I think you have to drop Asajj's 2 pip just
Yeah,
because of
and-
the weird
and-
timing issues.
yeah, and I'd be okay with that too, to be perfectly honest. Because
Yeah.
again,
The only
I
thing
think
that
she
sucks
needs
is then
to be buried.
you don't have 2 pips. You got 3 with 3s.
Yeah,
But
maybe slow rolling, and maybe with the pass mechanic, maybe you're okay, kind of doing some of this, kind of going second. I found that I don't know. I've just found that I have to rely on pip priority a little bit less, and I've been kind of almost like trying to go second a lot of turns lately. But and I found activations in most games have really come down. Playing I
Yeah.
played lots of people with 7 and 8 and 9. Like I actually can't remember the last time I played somebody with an 11 act list.
it's been a
And
while.
bef-
It's been a
And
while.
before you were like, I got 10. I'm not feeling great because you're playing 10, 11, 12, 13 activations at some point. But I almost, that's
I think-
another topic for another day. But I almost think like secret tech, if somebody were to jump back up to 13, you might have a real distinct advantage right now.
Yeah.
Like, going 4 or 5 units after your opponents.
Yeah, that is the thing. Although I will say, I think the lower acts have definitely made the game go faster.
100%. I actually like where the game's gone down to those low
Agreed.
act lists, and
I like the lower acts.
yep, and being able to play within the time. We've run a timer on the last couple episodes, and I've even noticed we've really chunked down our time. Just a lot less to do, but not less fun, not less engaging, not less thinking, not less like critical moments. Probably in fairness, more important acts more frequently, than a lot of like just dead activations and doing a whole lot of nothing. So there's definitely been, I think, value added in where we're at in terms of coming down with the activations. Okay, well, speaking of coming down in activations, we can also talk about a unit that just goes twice every round. So double the activations, and that being the Imperial Dark Troopers. So if you haven't seen them, where have you been? And if you haven't played against them, you're probably lucky.
You're lucky.
Yep. And if you played against them, you're probably going to share in a lot of what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about these, like I said, though, from both the receiving and giving standpoint. And we've both been on both sides of this. So, in fact, you can go back Friday Night Fight where we were running some Dark Troopers. Another one, other than the one even just last week. But if you're not familiar, here's the Dark Troopers. 95 points, 2 heavy slots, personnel slot, and a programming slot. Armor, plotting, unconcerned, which basically means that they don't get any benefits from cover and they can't be restored or repaired. And then unstoppable. Basically, this says that the unit is able to effectively go twice per round, which is probably the single biggest threat of this unit. And forget about speed 1. It's not a hindrance to these guys really, except in rare circumstances where you're like, geez, I wish I had a little bit further to go. But they have a crushing punch. That's their melee. It's a red white per model, and then they just have a stock standard blaster 1 to 3 black. I say stock standard. Add all the other stuff, it doesn't become that standardized. The core unit is 3 strong. It is a heavy unit. Red dice, 4 defense, 2 health, no courage value. So the real power is not in just the core unit, although the keywords are pretty unique. So let's talk a little bit about the keywords, Jace, before we get into all the available upgrades for these. So what are you thinking here is the single strongest keyword?
The ability to go twice.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. So that being, we'll cast that aside because I think that's just like a no-brainer. Go twice.
Yeah.
But what do you think about the other keywords on there?
After that, it's armor.
I agree. Yeah, that armor is, and we're going to get into that. It's sort of tucked up there, kind of insulated by itself. Let's just forget about this and move on. But armor is probably the thing that we need to address the most with this unit. Plotting, okay, the keyword's back. I'm glad they can only go speed 1 and only move once per turn, because the ability for these guys, if you wanted to on the first turn, just be like, all right, I'm gonna move. That's just too nasty. That's just too nasty. So
You're
I think
2 speed 3s.
You are 2 speed 3s. Exactly. You are correct. Yeah, I think just the fact that plotting's in here is probably one of the governing keywords, and that just needs to stay there for sure. Unconcerned, I like that they're not going to get any cover because you need your impact to proc against these. However, I will say the barrier protector business is kind of like giving them cover in many respects. So I like that they don't benefit from cover, and we'll talk maybe a little bit about how to get around that as well. And then, I mean, several people did. That was not us, and
several people said they were wrong, and that was us.
Yeah. You're funny, man. So plotting, fine. Unconcerned, I like that. The fact that they don't benefit from heal, I also like that. So I think those 2 keywords
that'd
are
be
great.
broken.
And I'm not even too I don't even think that you need to do too much to unstoppable. I think having the unique element of going twice per turn is cool. I like that. Yep. It's not something we have. I do not want to see that widespread in the game. Let me be very clear about that.
It cannot be on another unit.
But you're paying a pretty premium price for this unit right now, and maybe not so much in the 95 point base cost, but perhaps in the upgrades that you add. Here's a question for you, Jason, before we get into the heavies. Have you seen or have you ever thought about just running just straight 95 pointers, no upgrades at all, and just taking like 3 of these units to have 6 of the cheapest activations?
I've thought about it, but I'm just like, you need something in your list to do the damage. What else are you going to put in there to do it?
True. I think you got room to do things. That's fair. Even if you
Yeah.
put like an ATST in and like, and two of
Well, but then you
these,
can't. Oh yeah, an
right?
ATST and
You
two
could
of
run
them.
two
Yep.
of these in an ATST. That might
Yep.
be nasty enough, right? Because the thing is, if they just plod forward, literally plod forward, and then just got into punch fights, they're not that bad. Three white,
Yeah.
three red, three white in melee is not that bad, for sure.
Yep. And honestly, as long as you just take something that needs a center objective, all you do
Yep.
is you just run these towards objectives and use, because if you're taking
Overwatch
that
with
many
the
heavies,
ATST.
yep, and you got to have Gideon, so you just play that 2-pip and get out of there.
Yeah, true. Very, very true. Okay, well, that being said, I think the unit themselves, not bad at face value. The armor keyword, very, very strong. And the base cost is I think, reasonable. I know a lot of people initially thought, oh, so expensive on the heavies. You got two. Excuse me. By the time you add two, they're so pricey. You're never going to add that personnel slot. The program. I have run these things at the maximum amount of points, and I still don't feel that they're overcosted at the price that they are.
No,
For what they
not
do,
at
they
all.
are not. You got to insulate around them because you can build bad Dark Trooper list. Let's not. You can build bad any
100%.
list. Any list you can build bad. And the best built list can still perform or underperform or get beat. So it's not about taking these as it's an auto win situation. But you do have to have some proper units insulated around them and play them appropriately. They're not invincible. They're not indestructible, I should say. But they can get pretty dang close, and they can feel very oppressive in many of the configurations. So what we have here on the screen is all of the upgrades. And again, if you've seen these, this is not new stuff, but we're visiting this for the context of speaking about them, having played them now several times. The Myrtleizer, I've never seen it on one unit yet. To be perfectly honest, I've never seen one person run it. That doesn't mean that you can't take it, or that you shouldn't take it, or that it's not good to take. I just haven't seen people running it. Have I seen them in melee? Absolutely. But the extra 2 red and black, for me, they're hitting hard enough without adding 36 points in there. It's the points I want to add are for going in for them to be effective.
And I mean that guy already base would just throw if it was any of the other heavies, would just throw a red white. So you basically just changed the white to a black and add another red and gave it tenacity.
Yep.
And suppressive, because you care about giving that suppression in melee now, because we'll talk about it after, but suppression is so important in this game now.
Yeah, maybe not. But the other ones, including all 4 of the other upgrades, I actually run on them on the build I'm currently using. Now, I would say I think that the extra dude could easily be dropped and save you 64 points if you're running it times 2, for sure. And I would probably do that, to be perfectly honest. I do like the frag launcher a lot, just for the range band that I've typically found I've been playing these guys at. Because I like the idea of moving in, shooting, and then shooting and moving out. I like kind of that sort of play with them, and I think that the frag launcher plays well at that. The assault cannon, Jason and I probably agree, and we talk a lot. It's like the auto include. You throw it in, and you don't want to throw anything else on there. I think that it's still a pretty hard hitting unit. 7 black dice crit 1 feels pretty good.
Yeah, I have run Dark Troopers with just the assault cannon and the frag launcher, and the assault cannon, frag launcher, and the extra dude. And you need to always have that assault cannon. You can go without any of the other upgrades, except the program loyalty. I think that's also stapled on, and it's 5 points. It's 5 points, and it gives you a free token every turn. So it gives you 6 tokens for 5 points. You keep that.
Well, it gives you 6 tokens for I gotcha per unit. So you're getting a lot of freebies out of that for sure. And I agreed. 5 points is excellent. I do think that if you're gonna go in order, for me it's the assault cannon. Next is the frag launcher. Even though the Dark Trooper will save you an extra 8 points, for 8 points, the ability to make this pool get over cover, granted at range 2. Is great, and then changing, instead of adding a black die, now you're adding a black, so you have that covered off plus 2 red per shot.
Yeah.
The value for 8 points is there. So I think that's the appropriate build. I wanted to use them for the first time and run them at the max. Like, I've received many variants of them, but I wanted to try for myself to run them at the max capacity and then figure out if I want to whittle down from there. Jace has done all 3 evolutions of that. I've played against multiple evolutions of it, but I think that program loyalty, assault cannon, and frag launcher, as Jace suggested, is the appropriate value. Now, if you're doing the math on that, you're effectively now throwing 8 black dice and 2 red. We'll talk a little bit more about oppressive dice pools maybe in a future episode, because I think that's a larger discussion that doesn't just involve Dark Troopers, but certainly does include them. But that dice pool is quite difficult to deal with. It's very consistent as well, and it becomes exceptionally oppressive. By the way, Jace, this just getting a message here. Our new player, 100% cleared for Friday Night Fights.
Sweet.
So we might we'll have a newbie, I guess, this week, which is great. But just getting back to the conversation here, we're a live show, so we got to have live updates. So just bear with us. But that dice pool, Jace, some games it feels like it can do no wrong, and it's just 7, 8, 9 hits really consistently. Other times, in a couple games that we played early on, the dice pool just was like, it wasn't generating the hits for you at all. However, I will say this: when you are going 2 times a turn, times whatever Dark Troopers you have, times 6 turns over the game, more often than not, those dice feel on the plus side of average. When they are hitting your opponent, who is losing models typically quicker than you are, based on the fact that you have armor and red dice saves, that pool feels more and more and more oppressive. And when you're able to kind of vector in, killing activations and then sort of centering your focus, now your Dark Troopers might be doubling on somebody, or maybe you're really nasty and you've played the fire support turn and you fire supported a 10 dice pool into a 10 dice pool. All of that gets really nasty really, really fast.
My favorite thing too is even just fire supporting these into naked stormtroopers, just because you get that surge conversion. Just fire supporting into stormtroopers off these is amazing.
Yep, absolutely. And because of that, they start to feel really, really oppressive. I don't think that I have played a game where somebody hasn't complained about Dark Troopers. And I would say that even running them or running against them, I would fall into both categories. You're almost apologetic for the unit at times.
Yeah.
And you're always sort of, I find myself always kind of being like, what if they didn't have this? Would they still be good? What if they were tamed down here? What if they were toned here? Because part of playing this game is sort of managing the play experience. We all have bad dice, and we all kind of get sour about the odds and have those sort of conversations and whether they're allowed or not. We know what the play experience is like, and making a positive play experience for people doesn't mean that you are letting them win, or having a positive experience doesn't mean that you win every time. Like, we play the game enough that eventually you'll lose. You can still lose and have fun. And I would say the point is that if you've ever lost a game and played another one, you never had such a negative play experience that you never came back to the game. So we will all experience that. However, I don't know if I've ever really felt good about this dice pool in most situations. Yes, it feels good when you make a play and you've capitalized on an opportunity in the game. But I'm not really sure that like a 10 dice pool into a 10 dice pool multiple times within a turn, or every single turn 2 times, 4 times, 5 times we'll get into a turn, is really feeling kind of like in the spirit of Legion. Jace brought up the point. He's like, hey, remember when we used to throw 4 black and 6 white with the Z6 pool? And that was like the scary pool. You were like, oh.
With no surge.
With no surge, but you're like, oh, it's 10 dice. There's such a potential. Versus this pool where you're like anticipated to have large potential. And almost to the point where now, if so, you're like, if I don't make you make 6 or 7 saves, I'm feeling disappointed that this pool has let me down. And your opponent's just like, whew, reprieve, only to be hit with it 2, 3, 4, and maybe perhaps 5 times in a given
Yeah.
round. So cool unit, they're supposed to be scary. They're supposed to be oppressive. They're supposed to be all this nastiness, this very robotic, methodical, just move towards you and do damage. But maybe they don't have to be to this degree. And we're going to kind of get into the suggestions, and then we're going to give you guys some chances to tell us how wrong we are with some of these suggestions, or give us your own for that matter. So, all right, let's get into that, Jace. Okay, so the Legion IQ. We've talked about this before. Sometimes we do pros and cons, etc. This time we're going to go sort of change an effect, and maybe we'll bounce back and forth here, Jace and I. So I'll go first, and maybe perhaps the most controversial one to start off. But let me put some caveats in here. We are suggesting that perhaps they lose droid trooper and actually change to the vehicle keyword, vehicle unit type. This does a couple things. So changing them, and perhaps maybe even they have their own. But my point is, let's use vehicle because we have a frame of reference. So if they were a vehicle, that would really limit several of the objectives that they could interact with. And perhaps people will hate this, but they won't have the ability to go pick up boxes. They won't have the ability to carry hostages. They won't have the ability to go double tap evaporators every single turn. They will still be able to score things like breakthrough, carry bombs, perhaps, of course, key positions. And intercept, that one might be a little bit of a different one where, you're like, oh, they're kind of hindered by that. But vehicles can't do that either. So if you change them to vehicle, that particular change does not limit their offensive output. That does not make them less able to kill other units, but it just makes them less good at some particular objectives. And maybe that brings down the number that people bring, but I don't think it decreases the overall effectiveness of the unit. And I think that it brings it into alignment with other units that we see that have full armor. If the intent for these guys is to be very methodical and very straightforward and robust and offensively minded, perhaps they are interacting with objectives or missions a little less. They're kind of like seek, destroy, go, and as opposed to a little bit more strategic and moving to strategic positions. To me, it gives a little bit more of a flavor. So feel free, Jace, to jump in on that one, and then if you're fine, you can move right on to the next change.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that one. Just make them a little less jack of all trade, can do everything very well.
Yep. Oh, but sorry,
but
one last point. I've sure to cut you off. Another thing
ahead.
about doing that, and this has come up, is the vehicle keyword would then disallow them, as they're not field commanders, to then become your de facto commander with basically a nil courage bubble. So when you lose that commander and now your army's infinite courage, because I don't really see them as the courage commander type. So Jace is going to disappear. That's fine. We'll just keep chatting here till he gets back. But, he's back already. So I think that's another thing that you do actually add by giving them the vehicle keyword and taking away that potential for the infinite courage bubble. Them having no courage, no problem there. Adding that to your whole army, I'm not sure that necessarily is the flavor of the unit either. So, all right, Jace, over to you.
Agreed. All right, next one. Armor X, full armor, removing every hit. Seems pretty good on a unit that is a trooper and is also as cheap as it is. I mean, as we were talking about at the end of last Friday Night Fights, you take both heavies and the programmed and you come out to 188 points, which is less than, I think, just about every heavy available besides an ISP and an Alliance speeder. But Armor X just gives it that little bit. It's more realistic to be able to actually do damage to it, to be able to work on killing it, as this unit also has more health at a red dice save than any other heavy unit does as well.
Right. What X value might you assign to these, Jace? If you were kind of going down that track of thinking,
Give it 3, same as the spider droid.
3. Okay,
Yeah, give it 3.
right. Could Yeah, and maybe kind of a neat play on that might be where your armor X value is equal to the number of minis in the unit.
Yeah, that could also go.
You could just it would kind of have a diminishing return on that, but yeah,
Yeah.
you could maybe incentivize to be take more models to really flesh it out, and have a little bit of a diminishing return on that. So Crow Servo suggesting or give it weak point 1 or 2. I'm not sure. Not to suggest that he's wrong in any respect. I just wonder how you manage that with determining where the weak point was.
I think it would just be like basically you shoot the. It would be the whole mini. You shoot it from any direction. You convert a hit to a crit.
Oh, is that what he's implying? That's fair. That's fair.
I think that's the only way you would be able to make it work, right? Is
Yeah.
just you shoot at that unit because they don't have arcs. They don't have. You can't be like I'm in your side. I'm in your rear.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. It's kind of hard to determine like how that procs, but yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about maybe changing the distinction of the unit. Talk about maybe decreasing armor to like an armor X value, some number. The other thing we were talking about is perhaps the elimination of one heavy slot, and making a choice in terms of the flavor of the unit. So yes, definitively the unit gets smaller in size. You still have the personnel slot potentially, and you still have a heavy slot. And so, instead of being max 6, you're max 5. But I think what happens is you then have to start making a choice around what the unit's sort of intended function is. Are you going to go Myrtleizer that it's increased in combat effectiveness? Are you going to go assault cannon where it's going to be perhaps the largest ceiling of dice, and it's going to be kind of a range 3 platform? Are you going to go frag where it's going to be effective at range 3, but maximum efficiency is going to be at range 2, and that's where you're really going to sink your dice pool through? But right now you have no choice. You don't have to make a choice. You're effective at 3. You're increased effectiveness at 2. You're still effective in combat even without taking the Myrtleizer. But you really don't have to make any hard choices. And in fact, you can add an extra body just to preserve the effectiveness of your heavy right now. And then you have a choice of which heavy you're going to take out first. So by decreasing the slot by 1, you have to make some choices and effectively flavor the profile of your Dark Troopers. And maybe you take 1 assault cannon, maybe 1 frag, but you are making choices. And so that's one of the suggestions that we had around eliminating that. And I don't think any changes we're suggesting are overly drastic. And I don't think we're necessarily implying that every one of these things needs to happen either. It could be a combination there of any one of these things, but I don't think any one of them effectively takes this unit from the efficiency that it is now to it's not going to leave the shelf any longer. Okay. So I just was covering off that elimination heavy slot, Jace. So if you have any thoughts on
Perfect.
that, if not, you can move over to the heavy costs.
Nope, nothing else to add for that. I think you covered that one. But yeah, tweaking heavy costs. I mean, this unit. A lot of people will think this unit's undercosted, and maybe not its base price when you're throwing 3 dice for 95 points. But as soon as you start adding in those heavies and you're at 188 points, but you're throwing 8 dice, 10 at range 2, twice a turn, seems to become a lot. But then there's also some heavies that we don't even see get taken at all. Looking at you, Myrtleizer, giant sword that adds very little.
Giant bat, I think, like cricket bat, right? Oh, and Jace has disappeared. Well, maybe he'll return. Maybe he won't. Hopefully, we're still live with. Oh, hey, Jace has come back. Hey, Jace, welcome back.
There, that was weird. All right, yeah, giant bat that literally adds a red dice and a suppression token. So I think that one could definitely come down a bit. And I actually think the frag launcher is pretty good where it's at because it's limited by that short range and it has to cycle. So unless you want to spend an action recovering, you can't shoot it twice every turn.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the assault cannon could go up a little bit and the myrtleizer could go down a little bit, and it just makes that assault cannon less of the auto include.
Yeah.
Especially if you also couple that with just the single heavy slot, because if you do just the single heavy slot, I mean, there's a very good chance a lot of people just only take that assault cannon for the range. But if you increase the price then and decrease the price of the myrtleizer, it makes it a bit more interesting about which choice you actually make.
I think I could see a world where the Imperial, the extra trooper, maybe drops down into the 30 range if you are
Yeah.
willing to cut one of the heavy slots. It puts
Yeah.
it kind of in line with the base cost of the unit. It's a little bit more than the average model right now. So coming down a few points to give you a little bit of a discount in terms of taking it, but then having not willing to do that if you're going to leave the two heavy slots, but definitely willing to have a price decrease on that if you were willing to come down. So because I think it's for 32, you look at the Myrtleizer, you're like, well, I lose one die at range, but not really because I can just shoot the same base die and I increase my efficiency in melee for a few more points. But then you're kind of like, well, but for two more or for four more points, I can get that blast weapon. So you kind of incrementally creep up and end up at the same result, I think, more often than not. But if you drop the heavy and keep the personnel slot, going down a few points, I could even live with that. Not to suggest that we need to buff this unit anymore, but being reasonable in terms of some ability to both increase and decrease points here. So Jake and Canadian Bear in chat are kind of being a little bit suggestive. We're kind of on that track as well. I don't know if they're saying if you have Unconcerned basically being immune to all friendly effects, friendly abilities. I don't know if that necessarily would be too much of a hit here, because you want to kind of the retinue kind of would trigger off your commanders, so that's kind of like a friendly sort of ability. So I'm not sure if you want to get around all of that, but I think in your line of thinking, things like Guardian and Pull the Strings, yeah, 100%. I understand that for sure. We don't necessarily know if you have to eliminate the ability to use Pull the Strings, because then you're kind of you're taking that ability away from Palp. But what we were talking, well, I actually, why don't you go down that track, Jace, because you kind of had that suggestion.
Yeah, yeah. So I was thinking, I mean, not, it's kind of a feels bad if you have a unit that can't interact with anything else on the table. And it also takes kind of the fun out of list building because you can't look for any building synergies or anything. But there's a lot of things and the big thing that came to my mind when I was thinking of this is Maul's Juyo Mastery, where he gets 3 actions, but he can only do a move on 2 of them, right? They're triple moving would be kind of broken. What if they made it so that units could only attack twice a turn? That way you can't pull the strings to give it a third attack. Because 3 attacks on the 8 dice Dark Troopers, right? Throwing 24 dice is a lot. And it doesn't mean you can't pull the strings on them, because you can still pull the strings for the move. So, or you could still pull the strings for the attack if you didn't do an attack in one of your 2 activations. So say you move, aimed, pulled the strings for an attack, and then your next activation was an attack again. Or you dodge, aimed, did that. Yep. So it kind of just limits the ability. It also it reduces a third of the output that one of the units can put out.
Yep.
When paired with Palp.
No, and so Canadian Bear is pointing out, and exactly why the vehicle designation for me is listed at the top, and one of the best changes is because it gets around several things. It gets around the pull the strings. It gets you around having the infinite courages you've assigned it as a new commander. It gets you around having very strong interactions with several of the objectives. It does a lot of things, and it sort of puts it in a line with many of the other armor units in the game. So for me, that is the primary change that I would make for sure. But we're kind of having sort of several levels of changes and suggestions. So I don't mind the limiting the attacks, and what Jace is pointing out, that there's a world where you actually have this unit sitting at range 2, where it's a 10 dice attack, a recover, activation 2, 10 dice attack, recover, help pull the strings, and you shoot another 10 dice attack. So there's a world where this is sitting at range 2, puts 30 dice with blast, critical 1 into a target within a given turn. And that just ends up being a very oppressive experience if you don't have the ability to trim away any of that armor. And that's not unreasonable to think that you literally, like, you can play entire Legion and go, here's my all my tokens are out, and I go activation 1 Dark Troopers, activation 2 Dark Troopers, activation 3 help pull the strings. 3 activations in a given turn, you could have put 30 offensive dice out, and your opponent
And
has
probably wipe 2 units completely off the table.
potentially, and it's just very devastating. And having that third die pool with the pull the strings is exceptionally powerful. Exceptionally powerful.
Yeah.
J-Rod says, in addition to the unconcerned adjustment, add heavy units to the unit that can't be selected for rapid reinforcements, remove cycle from the blast gun, and take away 1 dice from the assault cannon. So he's got very minor adjustments. Let's have a look at the screen there just to kind of put that in perspective. So he's suggesting blast comes off the frag launcher.
I think it was cycle off the frag.
I thought he remove. I thought he had remove cycle. Sorry, cycle from the blast gun. Gotcha. Clarify my clarity. Yes.
Yeah.
Remove cycle from the blast gun. So you basically just have that as a tappable one that you need to recover. I like that because now you're needing to spend 1 action to be efficient or max efficiency. I like that. Remove 1 from the assault cannon. So let's just put this into perspective. You're going to be adding, let's just keep everything as it's same, 32 points to add a black die, 48 points to add 3 black die. I think his math checks out there. I think it's quite reasonable there. And you still have critical 1. I like that. And then he's saying, in addition to that, they cannot be selected for rapid reinforcements. Okay, I like that, and that's just that's a really, really tough. I actually played in my world game. I had to give up that condition and allow them to have rapid reinforcements, which was brutal. But it's just where it fell. It is a feels bad, and it does really mitigate much of the early play around Dark Troopers, where you can kind of hit them from that range and kind of force them to kind of spend those turns moving in. That just expedites the entire process, and in my case, expedited the damage output that I was receiving. So, yeah, it's very, very deadly. All right, Jace, we've paddled on. We've given our suggestions. We've got some great ones in chat. You want to just we're at 1:30. We're doing great for time. You want to jump over into the call center and just take a few calls before we round this out. So hopefully, you guys willing to join us. Let's do it. Awesome. Jace has not left us. I just actually didn't put him on the screen. There we go.
I'm still here.
He's still here. Yeah, he's in the call center. I changed the title. It's the call center. I left the intro the same, just because I'll redundantly use that. But I was trying to think of a clever. I need to come up with some recorded call center intros. But here we are. I'll throw this up in 1 second in terms of how you can call in to do all the things. But let's just set the stage if you weren't here at the start. So good crowd now hanging out. You all found us. That's good. So here's the topics for tonight. You got to use we ask you to use one of the discussion topics. So we got it right. So rarely does anyone come in and tell us that we're right. But if you want to come in and be like, hey, I like what you guys said there. It could be about anything. It could be about how awesome the tokens were, because I feel like they're good and awesome. So you could just come in and say we're right on that. You could also come in and be like, you're just wrong, and here's why, and then give us the business end of what you got to say. Conversation about force users. The last 2 topics are just kind of spitball ones, but I have had this discussion where I think that force users are in a bit of a tough spot right now, with gun lines kind of having a resurgence, Dark Troopers standing in front. You know, they obviously, Dark Troopers can be hurt by force users. However, the even the Dark Troopers with the pin down play, because I don't have that, they haven't been nearly as effective as I would like them against Force users. But you had no trouble against the Force users and in your build, and that build really won't struggle against Dark Troopers at all. But I'm just
No,
wondering
not at
about
all.
all of the things. Where are Force users right now? Maybe you're feeling very confident with them, and maybe you're feeling they're in a great space. And then the suppression mechanic. So if we don't have anybody in, or if we have a small lull, I want to talk about that. But I want to get your take on, what do you think about the suppression mechanic now? And I'm not talking about like, the ability to put suppression on and suppressive weapons, but I'm talking about my big thing is, I really think that having units run away and forcing, like, I get it, they get no actions, but getting no actions and staying in place is not the same as getting no actions and running away. Causing a disruption in your opponent's ability to control where their units are and what they're doing is what suppression should be all about. And I think, and then further to that, the all the different interactions with the missions, where sometimes you're dropping the item, sometimes you're not dropping but it doesn't count, sometimes you're standing on the key position but you don't count, sometimes you're checking panic and it has no effect, sometimes you're checking panic and it seems to have a huge detrimental effect. There's so many different sort of stages that follow suppression and panic, versus before it was like panic, you just run. You're moving in the wrong direction. You're not controlling really what you're doing, and you've been disrupted in your play. And I really miss that. So tell me all about your thoughts on that. So let's grab this little tab here. Let's throw it in. Boom. There it is. So we'll see who our first taker is here, Jace, and see what kind of direction they go. I'm very interested. It's in the chat there. You guys can call in as you see fit. But Jace, any particular topic? I mean, before someone tells us we're wrong, you could say how right we are, and just kind of roll with that. But what are your thoughts on that suppression mechanic I was talking about?
Oh, I think suppression's fallen a long way from where it used to be. I feel like it's not nearly as impactful on the game anymore as it was. Just the fact that, you can't run units away. I mean, the fact that they drop stuff, I mean, that happened before, and now that they changed it so it's only after a rally, it's the same timing as before. The only difference is now, instead of just, being able to actually like push your opponent away from you or away from objectives you were trying to collect, is they just sit there in the same spot, and then they actually remove more suppression, so they make it more likely they'll actually still deal with that objective that you're trying to force them away from.
Yep. No, I don't think you're wrong there at all. So, Graham, welcome. Graham, I will say this: I don't know if your internet's super improved tonight, but you look exceptionally crisp on screen tonight. So, and you sound very crisp. So, yeah. No, I bet you this is the first time today you've been told that you look crisp. But you know what? It's fine. I'll be the first one to tell you. I'm happy for it. So, go ahead. What do you got, Graham?
I think you could probably expand Force users to everything but Magnas and IRG that are like melee oriented, because at least they have some other thing they can swing towards.
Okay.
Saving Dark Troopers?
Saving Dark Troopers, or if you were running Dooku, I guess, or Grievous up front, that would be about it for Magnus.
Yeah.
Yeah, melee just in general is kind of rough. I was thinking about doing something with switching out for melee Wookiees, and it's like, they're not getting there.
Yeah, see,
at all.
Yeah, I'm on this kick where I'm like, man, do I just run like Grievous triple Magna and just like go all in on the melee and just see who reaches and go with the max havoc play? Like, and all the anti-pierce is great. All that anti-pierce is great. But I still don't love the prospects of being punched by 20 dice in a single turn by Death Trooper or Dark Troopers. Like, Magna don't want to make those saves. Wookiees don't want to make those saves.
Yeah.
Like, you're on average probably losing 2 Wookiees per swing by Dark Troopers.
the average Dark Trooper is going to roll 2 more dice than any other melee unit.
Yeah, it's
That's
crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't think their max efficiency is them sitting there swinging in melee. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
They don't feel bad about it either.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you take melee Wookiees and you're like, I'm not really happy with the shots I'm taking here. Like, I got to get them in to do their job. Magna Guard, you're like, unless you're running like the whip and you're shooting at range 1, you're like, I don't really love the prospects of this pushing much damage over, because I'm gonna go bury them. Like, Dark Troopers are like, cool, let me shoot 12 dice on the way in and then hit you for 10 when I get there. Like, where's the letdown there? Like, you're just not. It's everything around the Dark Troopers that could potentially lose you the mission, but the Dark Troopers themselves in a vacuum have not underperformed for me in any game. They've died, they haven't accomplished the mission, but they haven't underperformed in terms of like what I would expect to get out of them. Like, they just haven't.
Oh, yeah. What was it? The Evan Boris on the 5th Trooper podcast was talking about. There's a league. It's probably in the Toronto area because he's gone up there a couple times, but they've outright banned Double Dark Troopers and Blizzard Force from their leagues.
Okay. That's an interesting point. I didn't put it in the discussion topics, and I'm not going to say you can't talk about it, but I think that's a great one to bring up next week is, are we ever going to be headed towards that? And if we aren't headed towards it from an organized play standpoint, are people in favor of potentially doing some of that stuff? Like, in the league, we kind of do a pseudo ban. I'm just going out on a limb saying when we get to heavies, Dark Troopers probably aren't making round 6 in our league. I'm just saying. But sometimes it's not terrible to have a sort of window of time where it's like, we know this is really strong. Let's just shelf this for a minute to allow a few other things to maybe flourish and thrive in the game. Like, I think when the heavies drop down, maybe some other stuff comes back out and you're like, oh, cool. But maybe in the round where it's like, this round upcoming, spiders are going to drop off the table. Maybe they would be some sort of responsive unit to proliferation of Dark Troopers. Bikes dropping off the table in the support round aren't going to be very good for us to keep down Dark Troopers. In fact, that's going to hurt and probably cause a proliferation of Dark Troopers. So I'm not saying you have to ban them all the time, and I'm not saying I'd be necessarily down the path where it's like you can never run Dark Troopers, because it's kind of poor for the people who bought those units, painted those units, wanted to use those units, and yet also want to play in that league. You play non-league games, whatever, we do it all the time kind of thing. But that's interesting. That's interesting that they've kind of like straight outright banned 2 very popular units right now, and not even really old units either. So yeah, very, very interesting. So we got some time. If you guys want to, we'll leave Graham in here. If he's got some time, we'll drop that link in there. Jump in, and again, just tell us some other things. So Graham, what are your thoughts on some of the suggestions we had for Dark Trooper? Maybe I'll call them quote unquote fixes. I don't want to suggest that the unit's broken. It's a bit of a strong word, but I just think like maybe some calibration concerns.
Yeah, I think it would probably be more interesting if like, I know you were using vehicle for frame of reference, but if they had a new,
for lack of a new keyword or a new unit type, which I'd be open to, because then maybe you could do like a pseudo like balance between the two. Yes, but that was kind of my thinking.
Yeah, because then that also opens up possibility for other units and more creative space and whatnot.
Right.
Yeah, I think that probably solves most of it. I think I would, instead of dropping a heavy slot, I think I would rather see the personnel slot get dropped, have the personnel turn into a heavy, and then do some points adjustments for the 2 heavy slots. So upping the cannon and like dropping the price of the Myrtleizer and the generic guy.
Right. The only reason I don't like that, and maybe more from kind of thinking on the business standpoint, is you're now having a model in the box that's completely useless for actual play.
Well, no, because then you just change it to a heavy. Like you change the actual card from a personnel to a heavy. So it can still be used and in that slot, but it's not like people.
You're saying that the just adding an extra body is also technically a heavy?
Yeah, like just changing the unit classification or from a personnel to heavy on that.
On that extra,
unit.
so the extra dude is
Yeah.
is the equivalent of a heavy that really just adds the same base weapon. Okay, gotcha. Now I'm tracking. Yeah, the only thing I don't want to ever see is like where they put out a box for like the models that are in there, and there's ever a change that says like one of these models is useless. You don't need it. It's extra. I don't like that unless there was some value in like where you could like, you know, we've seen kind of like get 2 boxes, kind of get 3 units out of it. We've sort of seen that, but yeah, never where something gets nerfed to the point where it's like you're buying useless plastic.
Oh yeah.
I mean, in fair, some people can make that argument where it'd be like, but that's where several units are because they never come out. Well, that's an unfair statement that they're not useless. You just choose not to use them in light that there's more efficient stuff. But if you're taking a unit, the contents of that box should all be usable at all costs. That would be, but that's not what you're suggesting. Sorry, that's what I thought you were suggesting. I was like, I don't know if I love that, but so you're basically saying like you have. Are you saying though? You would still keep it at 2 heavy slots, eliminate the personnel, and change the card personnel to a heavy as well?
Yeah. And then having more of an aggressive pricing difference between the 4 models.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's fair. We got someone who... Oh, Crow Servo is going to come on here. Let me grab... I don't think he's maybe never been on our show before. All right, let me go. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe my memory doesn't serve here. 1 second. We'll pop him here. Boom.
Oh.
In.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right. Nice to be on the show.
All right. First time caller, long time listener. All right. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I was interested in. I really liked your vehicle suggestion for the Dark Troopers. That was actually pretty good. That solved a lot of the issues. The only other issue I saw with that is how do you deal with it when it engages in melee? Is it still a vehicle?
Yeah, it's... I mean, you can still technically engage with vehicles. I guess it just falls into that unique category where it's a vehicle with a melee profile. Like, I think really what we have a very unique model, and if we're going to make any changes, we might have to have some special asterisks or rules, etc. But no, it's a fair point, and perhaps it just needs to have its own special designation. I just used vehicle for the purposes of all the limitations that would then apply to it, that I think are pretty strong. I think the objective play with Dark Troopers is exceptionally strong because of the dual activation, and I think just having it retain that, but then not be so strong on several objectives would be kind of just a nice mitigating factor for it. And I don't think anyone, like I said before, I don't think making that change even says like, oh, well, I won't take Dark Troopers. They can't do X, Y, and Z. They can still do A through Z. It's just maybe a few of those things that they're doing exceptionally well come down a couple notches. So, yeah, I think you would end up having to have some special caveat around the melee element of it.
Now, can you also fold that instead of into the thing, fold it into the unstoppable keyword?
You could.
Where
you could.
Yeah.
Yep. J-Rod saying nice. Then I could still shoot them while I'm in melee. That would be kind of cool too. Where maybe you're never actually engaged with them. So they don't just go into units into pseudo melee and then stay engaged. That would actually be kind of cool. Jake suggesting here that unconcerned wording has that, as you were suggesting, Crow Servo, that they're treated as a vehicle for all purposes except for melee. And I could see something like that too. we have not seen a game where AMG is shy from adding text into cards and or rules. So I think that they've well explored the world of oversplaining things to the point of redundancy. So I can see that definitely being something that that they could explain out in all the text for sure. Let me ask
Now,
you.
could they also?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was wondering if you think they could change Unstoppable, say to treat it more like Implacable, where you only get one action on the second activation, or do you think that would be too much of a change?
Interesting. I think the dual activation is kind of their unique element, but I do think there is some limitations that we can add in, like Jace was suggesting, where you're limiting them to 2 attack actions. I think what J Rod was suggesting, where maybe their heavy weapon doesn't have cycle, and so if you cause them to have to do a few more things other than when they're in position right now, aim shoot, that's really what they're doing. And I think too where they're very good at objectives, oftentimes you are just seeing them sort of move into position and sit. They love center objectives. They love to get somewhere close. They love not to have to do a lot of things other than the really efficient things that they like to do. So that's
not to mention
cool.
the teleporting with the objectives is really strong too. That can pull off.
Yeah, I lost a game to Graham where short of a miracle roll, 10 out of 11 crits. I really didn't do anything in the game though. To be fair, I virtually sat there, just ate fire the entire game, still had many Dark Troopers after many shots, and then I was on an objective just poised to the GTFO, and that was going to be me again doing nothing. So like I didn't have to move far to get to it, and then all I was going to do is basically take all the work Graham did and go poof, I'm on the other end of the table, you can't touch me. And that kind of feels like you're not really playing them either. And I would say most games I'm barely ever moving the Dark Troopers. Like Jace didn't move his very much in the game he played. 1 or 2 moves. You're 1 or 2 moves away really from being in position on many of the objectives. Because perfectly honest, I don't see a lot of people playing Dark Troopers in Breakthrough. Yes, they're strong, and yes, you can just parachute in the back, but you're not wasting actions walking forward. Like people just aren't really trying to do that a lot, unless you're playing hemmed in, where they're just a hop, skip, and a jump from getting there. But because they're so strong in several of the other objectives, so strong. Like VAPs, they're really good. Hostage exchange, great. Shoot my 4-man stormtrooper unit, that's fine. I'll pick it up with the Dark Trooper, and then I'll just walk, and you probably won't kill me. Or I'll parachute back and hurt your hostage. So I think having some objective play with them where they can move around, like it doesn't take Moff's card and say, well, now it's useless that I can't take my objective token and move around. But I was saying this point, and I didn't bring it up earlier, but if you're going to play a game where I can't take a box and get inside of a truck that I drove there in and drive back, then there should be no way that I should take a box from one end of the table and fly to the other.
Yeah, I get you.
I just don't think you should be able to do that. Now, if you want to say that people can start transporting objectives in transports, I'm probably okay to maybe even leave that. But like, let's make some other units be able to do some like hocus pocus and quick GTFOing as well. Like we gotta even that out a little bit.
It's okay. Lat still doesn't get played.
Fair. What's your experience, Crow, with Dark Troopers? Played against them, feeling good with them, feeling like they're OP.
Worlds I played 3 single Dark Trooper lists and 1 double Dark Trooper list.
Wow.
So it went pretty well. But I was playing Blizzard Force, so I had something of an advantage. But the double Dark Trooper list, that was, I won because I had scored 4-2 and killed one of the Dark Troopers and grabbed his bomb and dropped him. And lost Vader doing it. And then it just run away from the other Dark Trooper and keep him from tabling me. So they're real. I think they're real strong. Single Dark Troopers lists are a lot easier to handle.
Agreed.
But double Dark.
Yeah,
Troopers,
because I
Dark
think what
troopers are
happens is,
broken when they're in singles.
well, you can skirt a single dark trooper, especially if they have to move. You can kind of like just sort of you it's like dish soap into the water kind of thing. You just keep that safe distance, right? Everything sort of just moves out away from them. That's difficult when you have two, because moving away from one inevitably means you're probably getting closer to the second, or they're walking you into a corner, or keeping you off a point that you need to be. I agree. Jake was in. Jake just on that point. Jake drops in here that the unconcerned wording. A little bit up. I think he was saying something. Oh, never mind. It was Sun Eater. He was saying that maybe if you take Gideon, you get to take that second unit. So maybe there's sort of a gatekeeper to having to take something else to like unlock the choice. So maybe Dark Troopers fall into the category of like.
Dark troopers talk for two heavies or just they're unique, unless they entourage. Is a question.
Yeah,
the
true.
unique unless they entourage would be a good one.
Yeah, that's fair. Yep.
They've
That would be really
also
cool.
now
A
put,
unit with a unique distinction, and then having an ability to
That's-
unlock that.
That's a new thing that they were putting in the rules changes, right? That was one of the new additions. Was they specifically pointed out like pipped names or something like that?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I don't mind that. Like, you're kind of paying a premium tax for it. I don't know if there's any one thing though that you could do to Dark Troopers. Like I don't know if that would be enough for me to be like, like the tax isn't that high, because I have Gideon right now in the very crappy list with no upgrades, but still two full absolute wrecking havoc Dark Troopers that I could trim down and still be pretty efficient. So it's not really like it's a huge tax, but I do like that, maybe in combination with a few other things.
Yeah, because the list I faced at Worlds was the double Dark Trooper with Gideon, and that was pretty threatening being able to teleport those things.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's a single person out there, and I don't want to speak for the world, like in all the people that I've talked to about this, I've not heard one person be like, Dark Troopers are absolutely perfect. There's no tweaks that they need. They're right at that refinement point. Every single person, whether you're running them or not, you're literally saying everything that they could be toned down on. And I think that's probably a fairly good indication that maybe some tweaking can happen to them. I love the concept of Dark Troopers. I think they did really well with lots of the cool abilities that they gave them, and the dual activation, bringing back plotting was a good choice on that. That Unstoppable is really cool. The no heal, no cover. I like all of that. I just think there's just an over tweaking of what they can take and how they exactly work. And for me, it falls back on the armor keyword and their interaction with objectives. That's the
Plus,
two things for me.
with Guardian and Protector and whatnot.
Yeah, that is an entirely different kettle of fish for sure. And I think, again, switch it to vehicle, none of that plays. Right? It just doesn't play there. Because that timing window, let's be fair, that timing window around that really wasn't an issue until it got exploited to this point. No one was sitting there really being like, oh man, Protector, Barrier, it's too good, it's too good, it's too good. Certainly no clone player I know would ever say that. But they surely like it. But it wasn't exploited to the point that it is now with how it's playing with Dark Troopers. So again, I think that it's just highlighting the fact that there either needs to be a timing window change, but perhaps timing window is too impactful and it's really hard to future proof whether that would cause a lot of havoc. But maybe go back to it wasn't really overtuned before. It's just working with this unit in combination does make it a pretty egregious. Yeah.
Or any trooper unit with the armor. Yeah, that's what.
True. Yeah. No. Agreed. Yep. For sure. But yeah. No. Well, just on that topic, I guess, since you were at Worlds, and we'll wrap on that. What were your thoughts on Worlds? I know we covered our Adepticon show before, but was that your first one, like first Adepticon? What'd you think of
That's my first Adepticon in a while. I hadn't been back there for Adepticon since when was it 2016? I think I'm not sure when I first went there, but I hadn't been back there for a while. It was fun. I get my family lives there, so it was easy for me to crash at one of their houses. But yeah, it was a good time. I think it was really well run tournament. I love the tables, but they had the multiple, train crossing each table.
Agreed.
I like the train. I like the train they had there, crossing the multiple tables. I think I got played on one of those maps. That was actually real cool. That said, I love the streaming table that David set up for the thing. He has some really nice looking camera equipment there for that.
Yep.
So.
No, it was always good to see the different tables was cool that they rotated them through. So,
and the huge community around when they started playing towards the end of the top 8 matches, there was a huge crowd watching. That was really fun to see that much involvement in there.
Yep, no, it was really good. I watched the entire semifinals, non-stream semifinals match, and it was awesome. Just being kind of table side was really fun, and kind of you're right there with the players. The only downside about that particular game I kind of felt bad was they didn't give them they didn't sort of set up like an isolated table, and so Andrew was constantly running from one side of the table to the other, but had to go all the way down the full rows. It would have been nice to kind of give them an isolated space, given that there was only 2 games being played, but. That would just trouble in the logistics, moving things around. Probably was a lot of work for them, but I enjoyed it immensely. I was really happy with Adepticon this year, so being my first year as well there. So perfect. Justice throws this up: for the love of all that is holy, do not catch the Gar at another Crossfire nerf, please. So yeah, it's coming for you, Gar. You guys need that nerf bad. So. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, last question before we leave everybody. We'll go around the horn. So Crow, we'll start with you, and Graham, you're next. Jace last. What is the next release that you're most excited in terms of everything that we know that's coming out? It doesn't have to be the next one coming out. What we know of. What are you most excited for?
The Inquisitors. There's more Force users. I want to see what that looks like.
Okay.
More Force users to play with. I like that. If they make them a unit or something.
Excellent. Empire buffs. Love it. Graham, what's up?
I'll wait till more is announced.
There's literally nothing that they've possibly announced. They've given us 100 years worth of releases. You got nothing that you're waiting for.
I would rather real Clone Commandos and not Clone Force 99.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm excited for Clone Force 99. I'm excited for that one.
Okay.
It looks cool. I'd just rather have the real thing first.
Okay. The real thing. Gotcha. They're all make-believe, Graham. Just hate to burst that bubble, but all right, fine. I'll be the only guy in my camp then. I'm most excited for the Geonosians. Probably the furthest release out, just pointing that out, but I am most excited for Flying Bugs. So
I forgot they announced that. Yeah. That's a
so long as the wings aren't too hard to assemble.
Oh, there are going to be 97 pieces for sure. For sure.
Each wing.
Going to be B1s on flight stands.
Each vein. Yeah, for sure. But whatever, it doesn't matter. We'll complain. We'll still buy them. We'll complain while assembling them, play them, complain, and then buy more. That is the evolution. That is all things models. So awesome. All right. Well, good show. Thanks for coming out, Jace. Crow, thanks for calling in. Graham, thanks for calling in for sure. I think you got an unassembled lat behind you there, by the way. Graham, it looks like you have one on your shelf there.
Yeah, it'll stay there.
On that. You need to get on that. So, all right. Well, don't forget, folks. You can go sign up for the league. League's happening. I put some dates up there. So round 4 is wrapping rapidly. Get your vote in. Get your registration in for round 5. It's free. The support band's happening right now. Blizzard Force, we're coming for you. Pretty sure bikes will not see the light of day in round 5. Just pointing that out for sure. And also putting a plug in for it for sure. And if anybody knows who this J-Rod guy is in chat, let us know. Never heard of him. But keeps posting like he's relevant. So that's great. So we'll catch you guys on Friday. New player coming out. Not sure who we're gonna pair up the new player with. Probably not Anthony, because he's never nice to new players. But we'll see about it. We'll put Jace against him for sure. So but come join us on Friday, and we'll catch you guys, if not on Friday, next Tuesday. And Brian jumping in chat in the future, but we're already done the episode, so he's already on next week's episode.
He's heard it all already.
Yeah. All right. Well, have a great night, everyone, and enjoy the upcoming week. Cheers.
Cheers.